Admit a few people. Welcome everyone, our 132nd Reading Online Sports Economics Seminar. Really very happy to have at short notice Alex Krumer willing to present this afternoon. He's going to present expectation agenda and choking under pressure, evidence from alpine skiing. So hopefully it's warm wherever you are, given the summer, assuming you're in the Northern Hemisphere. And so we can hopefully feel a bit cooler by thinking about alpine skiing. Alex is a veteran of this format and so knows exactly how everything works. Are you happy if people just simply interrupt you, Alex?
Yeah, sure.
Great, free for all then. We'll see how that goes. But obviously you've got about an hour and a half in which to get through the talk. Please do take away your talk, Alex.
Thank you very much. Let me just share the screen. That's the one. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Excellent. So thank you very much for having me. That's my third presentation. The previous two papers went pretty well. One was published in Scandinavian Journal of Economics, another one in European Journal of Operational Research. I hope this one will go also as high as possible as the previous ones. So thank you for having this platform. This is really excellent. And I encourage people to do the same, to present their papers. So the first paper I presented was about ski jumping. So now I said, why not about alpine skiing? Because it makes perfect sense when an Israeli guy presents winter sports, right? So today is a joint work with Christoph Buren from the University of Kassel and Martin Geschwend from the University of St. Gallen. It's called Expectations, Gender and Choking Under Pressure, Evidence from Alpine Skiing. So let's start. Okay, so I think it makes perfect sense if I say that we like to be in an advantageous position. You know, to be in an advantage or in a position that might bring you an advantage, we are all happy in a competitive environment, right? So this can be something like private information and trading, although I'm not sure it's really legal, or playing at home gives you an advantage, or to be in the lead in political races, like to win in the first state in these primary elections. We're all very happy about it because this gives an extra chance to win in the next state. Or there are, if we are to choose when to be interviewed or when to perform in music contests or in gymnastic contests, we like to be last because for some psychological reasons, it's better to be last than not last, okay? But it's okay to be in an advantageous situation, but to be in this advantageous situation may create high expectations, and those expectations may actually lead to underperformance. And this phenomenon is known as choking under pressure. And there are three main theories that may explain choking under pressure. What is choking under pressure? I perform worse than the average, right, when it matters most. So this is self-focus theory, distraction theory, and theory on the optimal level of arousal. So let's go shortly over each one of them. So self-focus theory argues that it's the best. We need to perform in an automated way. So when we start overthink or explicitly monitor every move, we actually perform significantly worse. It should be in an automated way. The performance should be done in an automated way. That's the first theory. The second theory, distraction theory, and it explains underperformance with worries that I will not meet the expectations. So I will choke under pressure because the expectations are too high, and therefore I will fail to do my best. And the last one, the last explanation of choking under pressure relates to this inverse U-shaped relationship between performance and pressure, and it has to do with over-arousal. So you need to be, if the arousal is very low, you will underperform. You need to increase your arousal levels up to an optimal point, and starting from this optimal point, any additional level of arousal actually harms your performance. Okay, that's a famous Yerkes and Dodson paper from the beginning of the 20th century. I think in this audience, I don't need to present too many studies on choking in sports, but just several. So for example, Hickman and Metz, they published a very nice paper in JIBO, and they show that higher stakes increase the likelihood to miss a shot on the final hole in professional golf. Myself and Ken Harbu, we published a paper also in JIBO, and we showed that professional biathletes miss significantly more targets when competing in their home country. There is a paper by Dandy and co-authors who showed that players perform significantly better in trainings compared to games when they have to perform free throw shots. Now, I will make a shameless self-promotion here, and I will show another paper on gender differences in choking under pressure, which I published with Dani Cohen-Zada, Moshe Rosenboim, and Ofer Shapir, 2017. So there we wanted to see how men and women perform in professional tennis. And the unit of performance was like whether you win or lose on your serve. Because in tennis, it is well known that players usually win on their serve. And if you lose, it's kind of you below expectations. So we find that before the score was 4, so we did many things, but that's the easiest one to explain. So before the score is 4-4 and after the score is 4-4. Before the score was 4-4 is less pressure. After the score is 4-4 in games in the tennis set, there is a higher pressure. So we find that men lose on serve before the score is 4-4 in 15% of times. After the score is 4-4, they lose in 20.5% of times. Among women, we see more or less the same story. No real change in losing on serve in professional tennis. And from there, we conclude that women do not perform worse under pressure. Moreover, we would even say that actually men are those who choke more significantly under pressure than women. Now, there are many studies in economics on choking under pressure and gender. So despite the fact that we had such a nice paper on tennis in the Journal of Economic Psychology, still the direction and of the gender effect on performance is really under debate. So it's not clear what's going on. So for example, and I'll list several studies. So Shurchkov, she observed that while women performed better in a low-pressure verbal exam, men performed better in a high-pressure math-based exam. Kai and co-authors recently, already not so recently, 4 years ago, they found that women but not men students underperformed in high-stake college entrance exams compared to exams with lower stakes. Actually, there are many studies on students and these entry exams. Now, I'm going back to this our paper on tennis. So one possible problem with the paper on tennis is that the interpretation could be different, because it is theoretically possible that it was the receiver who enhanced his performance in the decisive moments rather than the server chokes. Okay, so it's possible that actually the result is the other way around. Men perform better when the stakes are higher. So this is one possible interpretation. We will discuss why it's not. Now, also there is another tennis-related paper, Jeter and Walker. They found that men and women tennis players perform exactly the same in high-stakes situations. They had several criteria there. And there was another study by Ariely and co-authors. Oh, well, actually, now when I think about it, I have to check whether this paper was. No, I think this paper was not retracted from the journal. You know, we have this issue now with the. I think this was an okay paper. So they show that this is the Indian experiment. No, I think it's still there. So they show that high monetary rewards cause choking under pressure, but they found no gender differences. So the results really mixed. about the relationship between gender and performance. Now, given that we want to investigate the effect of advantageous situation on performance, but nature rarely creates a real-life setting that allow a clear view of this relationship between an advantageous high-stakes situation and performance. But in this paper, that's more or less how Ignacio Palacios Huerta likes to motivate the usage of sports data, and he does it in a very excellent way. So we take advantage of really clean, non-interactive, real competitive environment with high stakes among professionals. Some individuals have this advantageous position, others are not, okay? And we want to see the effect of this advantageous situation, and we also want to see whether there is some gender differences in this effect. Okay, so that's kind of the idea. And now let's see what exactly are we doing. Here we come to this alpine skiing. So the idea is that in slalom, giant slalom, and super giant disciplines, the course setter is a coach of one of the competing teams. So it's important to know that although there are some rules, they have to set the course, they have to set the gates of the course, right? So usually you compete like that in slalom. So they put gates, they have some rules, but still they have some degree of freedom. They have some places like some interval where they can put the gates. And those competitions allow us to test the effect of having a compatriot setter on performance. So actually, basically what we are saying is that we want to compare the performance of alpine skiing racers when their coach sets the course with performance of alpine skiers when somebody else set the course, okay? Now, just to make it clear, there are lots of debates about this thing in the world of alpine skiing. So, for example, in 2010 Olympic Games, Austrian coach, he actually admitted that he tried to favor his compatriots when he set the course. And also Croatian racer Kostelic, he admitted that he trained some of the combinations that his coach had set on the course, okay? So on the one hand, we have this advantage of if my coach sets the course, that's good for me, okay? On the other hand, maybe having a compatriot course setter may create extra expectations to perform well. And we know from the previous literature that extra expectations to perform well in a skilled based task may actually impair performance, okay? So just an anecdotal evidence, in 2022 in slalom race in Kitzbühel, an Italian coach set the course of the second run with 4 Italian athletes being in the top 10 after the first run. But after he set the course, only one of them remained in the top 10 after the second run, and 2 others failed to complete the race. And the leader of the first race even finished only in the 18th position. So it's really not clear which direction is stronger. The advantage of having your coach because he can explain how to do or where to be careful, or the extra expectations that this coach sets, and this may actually impair performance. So there are 2 opposite forces. So again, I think this slide I don't need to really explain to this audience, but yeah, and I also promote it on Twitter that using data from professional sports for economic research has lots of advantages. Everything is observable, the rules are known, I don't know, you can check the data easily, and yeah. So sports data are unique in that no other setting provides researchers with such detailed information. And for those who are afraid that sports data is not publishable in top journals, so that's not true. All top 5 journals have papers with sports data. So to study different things, but they use sports data to study human behavior. So I encourage all the people to increase the usage of sports data, but I think I'm in the wrong audience to encourage because it's kind of clear for this audience. Okay. Now, just to explain a little bit about alpine skiing, because maybe there are some people just like myself who had no clue about alpine skiing, and I can't even ski. But so the goal of professional alpine skiing is to complete a given course as fast as possible. And there are several, like 4 main events: downhill, supergiant slalom, and slalom. Now, downhill and supergiant are speed events, really high speed and very dangerous. And downhill having the biggest distances between posts and really the highest speed. So downhill and supergiant are carried out in one run. So everything that has the word slalom, whether this is giant slalom or just slalom, these are 2 runs. All the others, 1 run. That's how I remember it. So, and giant slalom and slalom are considered technical events. And these events are carried out in 2 runs on 2 different courses. So every course, like first run, has 1 course setter from 1 country. Course run 2 has a different setter from another country. Now, in slalom, the distance between posts is smaller and therefore speeds are lower. And this discipline is by far considered the most technical. And of course, the result is determined by adding the times of both runs. Just several more things about alpine skiing. So in World Cup races, only athletes ranked 1st to 30 after the first round are allowed to participate in the second round. In World Championships and Winter Olympic Games, whoever completed the first round may participate also in the second round. Now, about downhill, that's the only competition when the course setter is a neutral official from the International Federation of Ski. And therefore, we will not investigate downhill because there's nothing to investigate. We will only concentrate on slalom, giant slalom, and supergiant, because only in those competitions, one of the national coaches sets the course. Now, the main question is, in empirical research, is how the treatment is being assigned. So we could not find an explicit rule that determines the procedure of course setter's appointment. So we don't really know how does it work. But according to a Swiss expert from Swiss TV, so one of the co-authors spoke with him and we have email exchange. So the course setters are assigned before the beginning of the season in a lottery, and there is a higher probability to pick a course setter from a country that has more racers that are ranked in the top 30. So it's kind of random, not entirely random, but the more athletes in top 30 you have, the higher is the probability that you get that you are picked to set the course. That's how it works. And of course, in races carried out in 2 runs, there are different course setters for each of the runs. So actually, this assignment, which is almost random, is very good news for estimation strategy. Okay, now let's see what's going on. So these are the course setters per country among men in our data set, which I will show you. But in total, we have so for example, most of the course setters were from Austria, then from in the first round, then from Italy and France. Where is Norway? A bit less. And in the second round, most we had from Italy, then from so we can see that these are really then Austria. So these are really coaches from good countries in terms of alpine skiing. Okay, so there is selection into treatment from countries that are very good in alpine skiing, because this is driven by this rule that you have higher probability to be picked if you have more athletes in the top 30. More or less the same story among women, more or less the same story. So these are, yeah. Okay, so in total, we have data from close to 1,200 different racers, different people. We have something like 30,000 performances in the first run, and something like 10,000 performances in the second run. Now we can see the following. We have the following things. We have did not finish run 1, did not finish run 2, top 3, whether you finish in top 3, and World Cup points. These are our main variables, outcome variables. We will discuss them later. But just to show you something, DNF1, this means did not finish the first round. This means that you just failed to complete the race. Whether you failed, whether you've had a fall, or you did not enter the gates, or something like that. We can see that we have like 24% of, if you don't have a compatriot course setter that sets the course, you fail to complete the race in 24% of cases. But if your compatriot sets the course among men, it's only in 19% of cases that you fail to complete the race. But this is a very misleading, so I always present those misleading things just to say that if you only compare the means, this is meaningless, because we have the best countries are represented here. So for example, here we have athletes from, I don't know, Israel and all those countries that skiing is not, so they don't fail because they don't have a non-compatriot course setter. They fail because they're just very bad skiers. Okay, so that's important to remember. And with women, we have more or less the same story. Maybe in the second round, the comparison of means may make sense, but we are not there. We are not talking about comparison of means, but that's the data. Okay. So just I skipped somewhere the. So we have data from I think 15 years of competitions. Sorry, I skipped it. Okay, now so we have 4 measures of performance, which is did not finish 1, did not finish run 2, top 3, and World Cup points. And of course, as I have already said, a naive approach of correlating a dummy variable of having a compatriot course setter with performance would yield biased and inconsistent estimates, because racers whose compatriots set the course, they usually come from really good countries in terms of alpine skiing. So we really have to take it into account. Also, ability is an important thing. Yeah, and usually ability is unobserved. And this for sure affects racers' performance, not likely to affect, but for sure affects racers' performance. And in a previous paper that I published with Martin Geschwand, we show that we discussed that individual ability obviously varies over time. And then we show that the results by using racer per season fixed effects or racer fixed effects over the entire career of the racer, they produce different results. And it seems plausible to assume that racer per season fixed effects have more plausible assumption about the ability, because ability may change between the seasons. Okay, so we use here racer per season fixed effects, and this is what we do. So we have 4 outcome variables, which are did not finish round 1, did not finish round 2, whether or not you finish in the top 3, and World Cup points. And our independent variables are compatriot setter, gets the value of 1 if it's a compatriot setter and 0 otherwise. And we interacted with the giant slalom and super giant. So this actually compatriot setter then represent slalom competitions. We also have a set of controls whether a racer compete in his or her country, lagging time behind the leader after the first run only for the second run. Okay. We also use specific competition fixed effect, right? Because this may, if it's a very difficult competition or not, we have to take it into account. Yeah, and obviously we use racer per season fixed effects. So this is what we do. And let's go to the results. So when we look at the outcome variable, which is did not finish round 1, we find absolutely nothing. There is no significant effect of having a compatriot on the probability of completing the first run. The same with top 3, the same with World Cup points. The only effect we find is actually in the second run of slalom competitions. So among men, having a compatriot course setter has a significant effect on the probability of failing to complete the first run. So men who have compatriot course setter fail to complete second run in slalom competition. And this is like 4 percentage points higher probability to fail to complete the second run in slalom. Okay. That's the result with the did not finish 2. Now let's go to, yeah, we have different other tests, but nothing really super interesting. Now let's go to the women's results. And again, we only find anything in slalom second run. There is more or less nothing going on in except for World Cup points here, significant at 10% level. Nothing is going on with anything else. But we find an opposite result. So if among men we found that they fail to complete significantly more, so they fail significantly more, they do not finish significantly more when compatriot sets the course. Among women, it's the other way around. Women do significantly better, or they fail significantly less to complete the second run when their compatriot sets the course. That's the result. Yeah, nothing else really interesting. So the only effect that we find is in the second run in slalom, and those are opposite for men and women. Then we said, okay, let's only concentrate now on slalom competition. So we did some different robustness checks. So for example, in the second run, we only present so in columns 2 and 4, we only present the results for the World Cups only, because unlike World Championships and Olympic Games, we have in the World Cups, you can only have top 30 people after the first round. So we restrict our data only to the World Cups. So in column 2, we use all data on World Cups only, more or less the same result. Then in column 3, we restrict the data to racers whose lagging time is below the maximal lagging time of a racer whose compatriot sets the course in the second run. So 4.77 seconds and 4.96 seconds among men and women respectively. So we took away the outliers. So it's the same. And then in column 4, we restrict the data to racers whose lagging time is below the mean plus standard deviation of the lagging time of racers. So it doesn't matter. Whatever we do, we find more or less the same result. So among women, it's bad to have compatriot course setter in slalom in the second run. Among women, it's good to have a compatriot course setter in the second round in slalom. Okay, so we find really opposite results for men and women. Then we said, you know what? Let's see what's going on. Let's do some falsification test. Let's say, let's put a compatriot course setter in the first run on the outcome variable, which did not finish in the second run. So instead of having here if you pay attention, here I had compatriot course setter in the second run, and the outcome variable is did not finish in the second run. Here we say, okay, we still have outcome variable, which is did not finish in the second run, but the main variable of interest now is compatriot setter is in round 1. Maybe something fishy was going on. No, we find absolutely nothing. 0, as I guess, as would have been expected. I guess. But one may have different ideas also. Okay, so this is what we found. You know, as Nietzsche once said, facts are nothing. Interpretation is everything. So now let's discuss why we find what we find. So, as I said, we find that having a compatriot course setter has a negative effect on performance among men, but only in a more skill-based task, only in slalom. When the stakes are higher, that means only in slalom and only in second run of slalom. Okay? And the opposite for women. So we didn't find anything for super giant and giant slalom, only slalom, which is considered as the most technical event. And our findings are in line with interaction of several strands in the literature on choking, such as high stakes, gender, expectations, and the complexity of the task. Okay, so let's discuss, because we have why men choke, why women don't choke, and so on. But first, let's discuss the choking itself. So the existence of the negative effect among men in the second and decisive run is really in line with the literature on choking under pressure. Yeah, the higher the stakes, the lower is performance. So expectations to perform well may also induce choking in skill-based tasks such as slalom. So the higher the stakes are, on top of it, expectations, we could expect something like that is going on among men. So again, higher the stakes, expectations, and skill-based tasks, such as slalom. So those three together probably create conditions for men to choke under pressure. So as I said, the expectations are really not really helpful. High expectations are not really helpful. There are many studies on that. And by the way, Roy Baumeister published many papers in that regard. So he's probably the guru of choking under pressure literature. And our paper in GBOY about biathlon, that we found that professional biathletes miss significantly more, but I have to be more precise. We found that professional biathletes, they miss significantly more, not all the professional biathletes who compete at home, but only those who from the highest quartile of ability distributions. And there we say that probably the expectations to perform are the highest, and therefore they choke under pressure. All the rest, they don't choke under pressure, they perform more or less the same. So biathletes from the highest ability distribution, only they were the ones who choked in skill-based task, that is in shooting. In effort-based task, actually, we found no difference. Okay. Now, so let's continue our discussion. And now let's talk about monitoring skill-based process. And as discussed, monitoring skill-based process is a very bad idea. You have to do your best to execute it in an automated action, right? If you don't do it, this is a poor performance. So Baylock, I think she published several papers on golf on that. So let's go back to alpine skiing. So in our case, it is likely, or it is plausible to assume that having a compatriot course setter and receiving instructions from them creates greater expectations. And maybe slalom athletes, slalom racers, maybe they try to remember, okay, maybe in this turn I have to be careful or something like that. Again, I don't know. I can only speculate. I don't know what really happened. And of course, slalom is the most technical discipline. So interaction of all this may create choking conditions for men. Okay, but that's for men. What's happening with women? So we find for women the exact opposite. So our results on gender differences in choking under pressure, first of all, in line with the tennis paper that I presented to you, that men choke more under pressure than women in tennis. Now, similar to being on serve in tennis, where it's an advantage to serve in tennis, it should be an advantage in alpine skiing if the coach of if my coach sets the course. He can help me. He can tell me, okay, be careful here, be careful there. Maybe among men, it works the other way around. They just start overthinking, too much expectations, it doesn't work. For women, it works in the expected direction. Now, I would like also to mention a recent study by Lovatt and Waters. They found that men's, but not women's performance dropped after feedback that expressed high expectations concerning the subsequent performance. So that's So that's what they did. There was some feedback about performance, like you did good, you're almost there, and so on and so on. And they found that male did in this task, it was the same task. So in this encouragement, significantly worse than without anything, without like control group. Okay, so maybe distracts men, maybe, I don't know, but male participants perform significantly worse with intermediate encouragement, like with this, oh, go ahead, very good. Okay, another possible explanation for such gender differences can be found in the literature on the stress hormone cortisol. Again, we didn't test, we can only speculate, but this is just in line with those findings in the literature on cortisol. So there were several studies in this journal called Psychoneuron Endocrinology. Yeah. So first of all, there is the first paper from 2014 found that cortisol response and the drop in serving performance in tennis are positively correlated. So the higher is the level of cortisol, the less you perform. Okay. This paper by Van den Bos and colleagues observed that a higher level of salivary cortisol induced by this Trier social stress test is negatively associated with the performance of men in the Iowa gambling task, but women's performance and their level of cortisol follow an inverse U relationship, so it's not really linear one. And another paper found that cortisol levels measured directly before a rowing ergometer competition are positively correlated to men's, but not women's competitiveness measured with a survey. So what it says that actually maybe the level of cortisol is increased as a result. Maybe, again, this is just a pure speculation. I don't know, but our results in line with the story. So the cortisol levels are increased among men. High cortisol is not good for performance. And actually, the increase in cortisol probably would be linked to these instructions of their coach. And therefore, men are exposed to this negative side of expectations and that increase the cortisol level. By the way, it would be nice if I had a laboratory to actually test this thing. I would be very happy to do it. Okay. Now, okay. With all the respect to all the results that I presented, still there are some limitations. So first of all, our results come from the very specific and super risky sport of alpine skiing, where individuals are likely to be less or not risk averse at all, I would say, compared to the overall population. So it's possible that the results would differ in other environments. So for example, in the labor market, we do not need to take such serious risks where a small mistake may end up in a severe injury. Yeah, in the worst case scenario, you know, our paper is rejected. That's the risk we face. Now, also the stakes are not always as high as in our setting, both from the financial, but also from the health point of view. So this is really an extreme sport. But having said this, and I always try to say, look, it's only sport. So with all the respect to sports data, it's not exactly the same as other settings. But having said this, identifying gender differences among high ability professionals in response to a seemingly advantageous situation calls for extra attention among individuals who have to perform precision tasks in a seemingly advantageous situation that involve high pressure. And this interaction of high pressure, precision task, expectations may yield large economic losses, which is especially true in men-dominant occupations. Yeah, we are not really a stronger sex. We are prone to different psychological effects, and I find it a kind of study after study. I don't know. Now, so our findings suggest that it's worthwhile for alpine skiing authorities to consider neutral course setter, at least in slalom competitions. So to be honest, I'm not sure I understood why they do it. They have enough people, neutral people from the federation, to set the course, and that's it. On the other hand, then I wouldn't have had the chance to do this study. So, yeah. In any case, this will eliminate asymmetric information and make the competition fairer. Also, one implication of our results is that coaches do not need to further motivate players before important games, runs, or quarters. And for male athletes, this may be even counterproductive. I can tell about myself. I used to play football for 9 years, and when the coach used to talk just before the game, like 10 minutes before the game, or during the halftime, I didn't really understand what he wants, because the adrenaline is high, or maybe cortisol, I don't know. So, yeah. Now, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alex. Really interesting talk. Lots of time for questions and comments. So, yeah, got some team's applause. So let's just. I can't remember how to do it. It's such a long time since. There we go. React. Applause. There you go, Alex. A bit more team's applause. Any questions and comments from the audience? Dennis. Can't hear you, Dennis.
Dennis, you are mute. Or maybe he just applauded and then he clicked the wrong.
Yeah, can't unmute you, Dennis. Any other questions while Dennis hopefully resolves his technical?
Maybe he's waiting for the answer, Dennis. Maybe he asked and.
It's a silent question. Okay, well, hand has gone down. In fact, he completely left. So maybe he's in disgust at the technical issues. But anyway, any other questions and comments?
By the way, I just want to take the opportunity before you may ask questions. I want to invite you all to submit the papers to a new journal, Sports Economics Review. We already have 2 volumes. The first volume had all the papers had at least one co-author with history in the top 5 journals, so it's going really well. We already have 2 volumes, and we are happy to accept new submissions. Yeah. And now let's go back to make sport no war.
How many were presented in the Roses series, Alex? Have you kept count? At least one. Jamin Spears paper.
Yeah. Actually, that's right. It's a good paper. That's how I knew it's a good paper.
Yeah. Okay, I'll ask you a question, Alex, which might suggest that I didn't listen at the appropriate part of your talk. But your measure is people skiers not finishing, is that right?
Yeah, not finishing. One of them, but the main result is coming from did not finish run 2.
Yeah. I mean, is specifically I just know nothing about skiing, so I guess 2 questions. One is, what happens to them? Do they fall off or something?
I don't know exactly, but they just can't. So either they miss the gate and then that's it,
Okay.
or they just collapse.
Right.
But usually it's missing the gate because in slalom the speed is very low. Dennis has a question.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm here now.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank goodness. I feel like I've had kind of a bait and switch here, because you talk about pressure, but really it seems to me that it's about compatriot bias, not pressure. And I'm not sure if I understand why there would be even this bias, because my understanding is everybody gets to see the course. It's not like the course is set and then nobody gets to go down it, so that, you know, you're not running your first run with a completely blank slate on where the gates may be. So,
Well, that's the point, that between the first and second run there is not much time, and I'm not sure that they all see the second run. So they start up the hill, they go down, then they wait a little bit, and then they continue the second run. So I'm not sure that they really participated in this specific track with these specific locations of the gates. Not sure at all.
I'd check that, because it seems to me like that's a huge safety issue. So you go out on the course and you
in
change
slalom, Dennis, in slalom, because in this downhill for sure they have training session one day before. That's a different story. Slalom, the speed is very low.
Okay. Like you, I don't have any idea what these words mean. I know that there are people with sticks on their feet that slide down a hill. I'll take that as, okay, it's a much slower thing and they don't have to react so quickly. I'm still a little concerned that it's more compatriot bias than it is pressure.
Yeah, but if we go to definitions, so first of all, I'm not sure I understand what is compatriot bias, because compatriot bias can be positive, like in ski jumping that we found that compatriot judges assigned significantly higher scores to their compatriot skiers, the jumpers. Here it's a different story. No one evaluates them. They just set the course, and they probably, I wasn't there, I cannot prove it, but probably they say, look, pay attention here and there. Probably. Again, just a speculation.
Or when I go out on the course to set the course, I know what my skiers' strong suits are, and I set the course in a way that benefits them.
Exactly. This is exactly what I said.
There's no pressure. That's not pressure. That's compatriot bias.
No. But wait. If there was, okay, probably there is compatriot. So it's a matter of definition. But where was that? Wait a moment. So here they even admitted that they try to. So they created a race that favors their compatriot, and this guy said that he trained some of the combination that his coach had set on the course. So they do try to favor them. In that regard, it's a compatriot bias, okay. But then probably, again, that's what we see in the end. It's not a paper that was based on hypothesis where we say, okay, it should be like that. We saw the result and we kind of went back. It's kind of let the data talk, because there can be different directions. One is that they favor their compatriots by setting a course that fits them the best. But two, this may create extra pressure of expectations, which actually may impair their performance. So there are two opposite directions. So when you come to me and say, Alex, I'm sure you can do it, you are really good, and this may put pressure on me. That's the Baumeister papers. That's what they did. They manipulated with this in the laboratory, and this is what they found. And then this bias turns out to be pressure for men and maybe remains bias if I follow your definition for women.
Any response, Dennis? Okay, we will then move on to our second question, which is from Ian.
So mine's a follow-up question, really. So I was wondering, how much are they changing the course between the first and the second runs? So is there any connection at all? Like once the first run is set, do you have only, can you change it like completely, or can you only make minor adjustments?
It's a completely different course. They start, as I said, they start up the hill. They finish the first run, and then the second run is below that. So these are completely two different courses.
Oh, so they're not even skiing on the same patch. Okay. Okay. So yeah, I guess so one thought I had was if my players were winning, my skiers were winning, they've done really well in the first round, then I wouldn't change it for the second one.
No, but then there are
I
two
guess
different.
you have to. You're
there
saying
are two different setters. For the first round, one setter. For the second one is another setter from different country.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So if my people happen to, so I'm the second round setter. So if my people have happened to do particularly well in the first round, well, I'm not going to change it for the second one, but you're saying they have to change it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's by definition is a completely different track, completely.
Okay. Well, still, maybe I'll try to get it similar to the one they've just been successful on, but yeah. But no, it's good that they have to have a completely different one.
Thanks, Ian. Any more questions, comments? Dennis still got his hand up. Is that an actual hand or a tied hand?
Is that my hand?
Your hand's up.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I will ask a question then. It seems to me, so they've changed the gate setup between rounds, but each skier going down is going to cause the snow and so on to be different. So in some sense, no two skiers are ever running the same course.
In a way, yeah, probably. I asked about it. So they, from time to time, they do this synthetic snow, but generally speaking, yeah, you're right.
I don't know that that means anything. I just wondered if you had some thoughts on it.
Yeah, but the point is that one thought could be that if you participate later in the sequence, this could have affected your performance. But and this may, I don't know. But for example, we control here for, we control for the lagging time behind the leader of the first round. So we do take into account how much behind the leader you are. So for example, I don't know whether it's enough, but we also control for the difficulty of the track, which is common, which is fixed for everyone, right? We use fixed effects of this competition. Still, if the track is different, but then why would I care? Because the course setter, does it mean that I would run into problem if the course setter would systematically be for the racers who are always like perform last in the second round? Then maybe this is a problem. But
is it the same order in both rounds, Alex?
No. In the first round, they do. They have some preferences. So according to the World Cup points, still it's somewhat random in ranges. So for example, someone from Israel cannot be performed first, second, or fifth. They are down. But in the second round, it's always reverse order. Number 30 after first round, then 29, 28, 27, and so on and so on.
Do they get to watch the other skiers go before them, or are they just sat in some kind of situation where they can't see?
I don't know, no, but they have this radio. They have, I guess they do know what's going on. But yeah, Raphael had a question.
Yes, go on, Raphael.
Yeah, hi, Alex. Good to see
Hi,
you.
good
So
to see
I
you.
enjoyed your presentation very much. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
So just a quick comment. So I think it's very interesting that you've only find an effect for the second run, but not the first run, right? So if we would think that the skiers, they would actually benefit like from inside knowledge or from kind of a useful course that is set that fits the particular athletes, we would expect to see an effect in the first run as well, I would expect. Now, because you do not find an effect, I would say that would indicate that the effect is purely psychological, right? Isn't that what you argue in the paper as well?
So we argue that the effect is because of choking under pressure, because the pressure by definition, that's what I say, we have interaction of several things. Precise task, like skill-based task, and it has to be more pressure than less pressure. So in run 2, by definition, is the decisive one compared to run 1. So here you have probably less pressure than here. And that's what makes you fail more. That's our interpretation of the results.
Okay, thanks.
Great, thanks, Raphael. Any more questions and comments? Stefan.
Hey, Alex. Just following on from the last comment. I mean, you say less pressure in the first round, more pressure in the second round. So one question is, is there any way to quantify the degree of pressure or to get some kind of, how much is at stake? So, I mean, less, more is a little, so it sounds a bit vague there. And the other thing is that I'd wonder is whether you feel pressure on, I mean, the psychology of pressure is, I guess, multidimensional. There are many ways in which, you can feel pressure, and different people will feel pressure in different ways. And particularly, I would have thought, you say there's less pressure in the first round than in the second round. Well, if I'm not clear on that for all competitors. So, for example, if I'm a mediocre skier, and I think that I got a chance of getting into the second round, but I'm borderline, then actually the first round I might have an enormous amount of pressure on me because it's on that. Whereas if I'm a super great skier expecting the gold medal, I could feel a lot of pressure because it's easy to make a mistake in the first round, and then you're embarrassed and you let everybody down. So I'm not clear. So I'm not clear that it's really. Well, it's firstly the feeling pressure seems to be very heterogeneous kind of thing. And then the second thing is, well, is there any way to narrow down, who might be feeling pressure and why?
So as you said, I don't know how to define pressure, but let me argue with you about that there is more pressure in second than in first. Okay, maybe not pressure. I will not go to pressure. There are more at stakes in the second round compared to the first. If we go to a simple, I don't know, contest theory thing or game theory, the valuation in the second round is by definition higher than the valuation in the first round, by definition. Right?
I don't know.
No, but that's
because we don't know about skiing.
no.
Let me give you a different example. If I submit a paper to the JPE, I feel no pressure because I'm expecting rejection. If I submit a paper to the Journal of Sports Economics, then that's a really high pressure situation because that's where my peer group are. If I can't get past that, then I'm really, I really feel like I'm failing, and I'm just not hitting the mark. So I I don't have to feel pressure just because it's the. I mean, what you say is the highest stakes, as if you know you only ever feel first prize, feel pressure for the first prize and never for the second prize. Dennis is going to give us a statement on publication in the JSE.
Okay.
That is not what I was going to do. But I think that one way to address this, and maybe I'm just missing it, but one way to address it is like the ranking of the skier on, I mean, there must be some sort of World Cup or championship ranking scores. And to use Stefan's kind of an example, if I'm the leader on the leaderboard of this ranking and I don't finish the first round, that's a lot of pressure on me to at least finish. So I may play it safer so that I don't fail to qualify for the second round. Whereas if I'm 80th on the leaderboard, nobody expects me to make it to the second round anyway. So there's very little pressure on me. So maybe this is controlled for, but I don't see it.
But take a look at the estimation strategy. I compare within the same racer how he performs with his compatriot compared to not with his compatriot. It's within the same guy who submits to Journal of Sports Economics with pressure and the same guy who submits to Journal of Political Economy without pressure. So it's always within the same person. So I think I take away this, in a way, this heterogeneity, because I do compare for each one of the participants here how they perform with their compatriot and without their compatriot in the first round and in the second round. So do I miss something here? So, and in that regard, so how many points you have this racer per season dummy? So it actually takes the ability into account. So this Schifrin or some other good athlete. So I know it's Schifrin with compatriot, without compatriot. That's the research question, and that's what I try to answer for the same athlete in different situations.
Yeah, but aren't you aggregating all these effects across athletes in your regression, right? So yes, there's two cases, but I mean, I think what I'm suggesting is there's considerable heterogeneity here, and so amongst within the athletes about how they might perceive the pressure. So it's not clear that it goes one way or the other. To say that it goes the same way for all the athletes.
Yeah, I see now. Now I see. Yeah, I see your point. Yeah. So what would you suggest to get rid of racer per season fixed effects and then just to cluster different? Because then I get rid of a very good control to tackle another question. So I compromise for really good control of ability. Then, because I've been thinking about it, and then, for example, I take number of points before the race, and then according to this, I kind of do the clustering or quartiles or decimiles of ability distribution. Then I run into several problems. First problem, before the first run of the season, everybody has zeros. I can use data from previous season, but then I assume that the ability kind of carries over between the seasons. So I might run into another problem here. So I'm not sure how to tackle it. And I agree with you. This is a very good point.
I wish I had a quick answer. I don't think I have a quick answer to that.
But you have good questions.
Yeah, big help that is, right?
Yeah.
Ian's got his hand up.
Yeah, I also have another question and no answer. So how does it all relate to risk taking? So imagine if there was a robot going down, doesn't feel any pressure at all, but they are perhaps taking a different amount of risk when their buddy has set the course. So maybe they overestimate perhaps the advantage that they're getting, so they actually take more risks, and that this causes them to fail more. I don't know. Can you definitely rule out like a risk-taking story, or is it all part of it?
It's an excellent question, and I know this question on risk-taking also from my previous tennis paper, and I have an answer for that. If you have to take more risks, or if you have to take less risks, but you decide to take more risks in high pressure, high stakes situation, then you choke under pressure. Your decision making is wrong. So let's say choking under pressure takes into account different risk measures. Okay, so I don't go into resolution of risk taking for several reasons. First reason, I don't really know how to measure it, to be honest with you, and I don't think someone has any idea how to measure risk taking in this setting. Maybe there is, I don't know. And second of all, choking under pressure, part of it is take different levels of risk that brings you to worse performance. That's choking under pressure. Don't take high risk when you don't have to. That's it.
But perhaps they have to to win, right? So I enter 5 events. I've got 2 choices. One, I can go play it safe. I get down every single time, and I never win. Or I go super high risk. I fail 4 times out of 5, but one time I absolutely nail course. And it's the 4 times out of 5 I didn't choke. That was part of the strategy.
It's a good point. I don't have a good answer for that, and I hated this answer several years ago, but now I'm more honest about it. But I don't know how to measure risk really. In any case, choking under pressure takes into account the difference, the risk taking. This one I'm pretty confident. Whether it satisfies in terms of how to perform best, what to do best, I don't know. But then my question is, why would you take more risks rather than less risks if this is your compatriot? And if your compatriot said, so maybe it has to do with overconfidence, not risk taking. So I don't know how to, you see, I really don't know how to differentiate between those two effects, overconfidence and risk taking. I don't know. But the overall umbrella is choking under pressure.
Okay.
Thanks, Ian. Any more questions and comments? Raphael.
Hi, sorry. A second comment. So you do not find any effect for men on ending up in the top 3, right?
For no one. I don't find for no one.
Point.
I don't know. For no one.
So we could say, well, actually, there are no actual negative consequences from this behavior. And then I would ask myself, okay, could it actually be choking under pressure if there are no negative consequences, right? So or are those course setters really kind of a major problem if you do not see any negative consequences after all?
On sporting content, yeah, you're right. There is no consequence in terms of winning or like being in top 3 or World Cup points. That's right. Yeah. There is for not finishing, which is only one dimension in these competitions. So, yeah. By the way, for women, we find something here that there is. It's good for women to have a compatriot, both in terms of not to like to finish more often and to gain more points. For men, we find nothing here.
Again, revealing my ignorance. Do these guys not get timed when they do the runs?
They might get times of the others, how much they need to. I'm pretty sure they do, but I don't know.
What I was wondering was whether that was a measure you might have used as well as being in the top geometry and getting points and so on. But does the time that they take to do the course not matter in alpine skiing?
Sorry, I misunderstood probably.
Just the time from when they start to when they finish each run.
The time of the, no, we didn't take it into account. The problem with this is that if you do not finish, you don't have time. So
Okay.
how do you, so you have to omit this. Also, there was another thing that the rankings, I cannot take rankings because those who don't finish, they don't have rankings. So I cannot do it.
Yeah.
But everything we could do in terms of outcome variables, I think we captured.
Yeah. Okay, last chance for questions and comments for Alex. In which case, yeah, I can see one additional applause for Alex. Thank you very much, Alex. That was a really interesting talk, good discussion as well. I feel I've learned something today, which is always a good thing.
Thank you.
We will take another break next week, not least next Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday is the MathSport conference in Budapest, which I know a number of folk here will be going along to. I wish you all a great time in Budapest. I put in the chat that those of us unable to go, we can access 4 sessions from the conference, 2 on Monday and 2 on Tuesday via Zoom. So there is a way to access some of the conference remotely if you can't be in Budapest next week. Information is in the chat. And because of the conference next week, we won't meet next week. In addition, the kids are off next Friday for me, so that's another reason why I can't. But we will then meet again on July the 7th, so in 2 weeks' time. Peter Pashakov will present again on choking under pressure in online and live competitions. So we'll carry on the theme of choking in a couple of weeks' time. And in the meantime, see you all soon and do enjoy your weekend. Thanks again, Alex.
Thank you. Bye-bye.